and welcome to Byrna's Hot Take, where we discuss self-defense concepts, tactics, tips, and training so that when the time comes, you are prepared to defend. Today, we are here with our special guest, David Gothard. Gothard is, he's got a very unique background in the fact that he spent, some solid time as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer in Texas. But then he's also been a realtor for, a little while now. And so he definitely has some very knowledge that I think he can definitely bring to the table talking about self-defense, especially in such a, a big market as kind of that realty market. So I appreciate you being here, David. Thanks for joining us. So you've been a realtor for a while now, and with your law enforcement background, I think you have a unique visual into kind of that world, and you bring a lot to the table. I think probably a lot of realtors don't see when it comes to safety and situational awareness, just because of the things you've experienced and the things that you've been able to see in your in a previous career. So, But first off, which kind of your specialty in realty? I feel like every realtor has kind of a specialty. What's yours?
Well, yeah. So mainly right now, it's a lot of residential. And we do a lot of work with law enforcement and first responders. So that's kind of my market right now, that I'm kind of targeting or working with the most. So yeah, first responders, teachers, also something that I did in the past. Military and veterans, we work a lot with them to try to get them some good deals and so make it an easier process.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's mostly residential, right?
Mostly residential.
Gotcha.
Right.
Which is I'm assuming a large section of the kind of market there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So and obviously really hot right now. So I'm sure you stay pretty busy.
Yes.
Well, thanks for carving out some time. Yeah, thankfully, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for carving out some time for us. So with your background, what was some of the biggest things when you kind of made that full-time transition and went over to real estate? What are some of the things that you went and saw, which kind of culture shock, like, oh my gosh, this stuff is, either us doing this, or it's just, not necessarily unsafe, but just kind of inherently more dangerous than what people do in their normal day-to-day life?
Yeah. So, being a law enforcement officer, you kind of, pick up that hypervigilance, and the kind of the Kim's game thing, that we used to train ourselves with. I'll walk into a room and just start picking out details, and memorizing things and just checking out my surroundings, something that my wife never does. So I have to do it for us. But yeah, so that's something that I see realtors, that may not have the training that we as law enforcement officers have. Kind of, I don't, living in the, I don't want to say la la land, but just kind of like going about their day and not really thinking or understanding that there could be danger out there, and not really checking their surroundings. Or
was there anything specifically that you saw, whether you're working with another, even to today, where you're working with another agent, you're working with another realtor, and it just pops out at you as, man, that is a super unsafe, kind of practice or thing that they, thing that you see them do?
Part of being a realtor is showing houses and, letting this person that you may or may not know, may or may not trust, be behind you. So
something as small as just don't let them get behind you?
Absolutely.
Wow.
As a realtor in this state, we have to open the door, right? We have to unlock the door because, that's just the law. You're showing somebody's house and somebody's personal property, and we're licensed, and because of that, we have to be the one to open the door. And oftentimes, when we're unlocking the door, we let our awareness of what's behind us go away. There's usually a mechanism, what we call a lockbox, on the front of the door where you have to retrieve the key. And oftentimes some of them are digital and they run off of a Bluetooth with your phone. So you're fidgeting with your phone, you're fidgeting with the mechanism to get the key. And there's a good, 30 seconds to a minute of just
obliviousness to
don't
what's
even
going
care
on.
what's behind it.
Oh man,
Right.
I never even thought of something as small as that. So what would be in that case? I mean, is there a better, because that seems like that happens every day. That happens, probably 3 or 4 times a day for most agents. Is there a better way to do that? Is there a better way to make, or is it just, hey, take a second, check what's going on behind you, and then continue?
Absolutely. I think if time permits and if it's okay with the listing agent and the homeowner, get there before. Get there beforehand. Open the door beforehand before your client gets there. If you can, a lot of times, especially in a hot market, there's showing after showing after showing, and you have this set, what may it be, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. There may be, a showing before you, another realtor with another client. And if that is, then great, because, you and that other realtor can hand off the key and not have to worry about that at all. But I think that the most important thing is if you have time, get there first, get there early, and go ahead and do your recon on the area, and then also get that door unlocked before your client arrives.
And that's such a great tip that I would have never thought of, and something that's so huge, like you said, in law enforcement, both of us having a law enforcement background, that's something you would never do. You always keep the person in front of you, always keep them to where you can see them, but sometimes that's just not a feasible option. So, what a great, I never would have thought, hey, look, it's something simple as just get there early if you can.
Yeah, right,
so,
right.
So, that kind of leads me to my next question. Realtors have, they're meeting with clients, they're doing open houses, they're doing all this, all these different kind of, ways to show houses and to create business. What do you think, which one of those is really the, kind of the, I don't want to say pitfall, but, the one where it's like, hey, you are the most vulnerable during this kind of event, that you do?
An open house is up there. But oftentimes, realtors and realty companies now are doing open houses where it's not just one realtor. And they have a team member or a partner there as well. But yeah, with an open house, a realtor's in the house that, they may be familiar with, but really not too familiar with. And then the open house is, man, it's an open house. You know what I mean? So there's,
because you're wanting people to come, so you're trying to push that out as much as you can.
That's
right?
what an open house is, right? I mean, it's really, because anybody can set up an appointment and see a house, that's on the market. But the open house is like, look, I'm trying to advertise for this client. I'm trying to get this house out there, but I'm also trying to advertise me. And that in itself can be a problem, right? You're throwing yourself out there on social media, and you're like, hey, come see me at this time, and it's an exact time, right? Come see me Saturday 2 to 4 at this open house, right? So you're not only advertising the house, you're advertising yourself, and you're putting yourself out there, which could be a negative situation for somebody that might,
want to do you harm.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
do you feel like there is that there are some agents, some realtors out there that kind of overshare personal information, and is there a way to kind of bracket that to where it's like, hey, look, there's some things you should share and some things that you shouldn't to try to protect yourself?
Well, no. Because you want to get out there. You want people to have your information because you want them to contact you. So yeah, if you can have 2 phones, this is my work phone, this is my personal phone, that'd be great. If you could have, social media is huge. So if you can have multiple social media accounts, that works. But ultimately it's, you want people to have your information. So you kind of have to work in other areas to protect yourself than that, because you are so vulnerable when you put all your stuff out.
So do you feel like, separating as much as they can kind of their professional life? In law enforcement, they taught us, try to separate that as much as you can. Don't show have something separate if you can, so that you're not, showing your family all the time with, with your law enforcement duties and all that stuff, because it kind of helps compartmentalize that. Is that something that would be beneficial to them as well? Just, hey, this is my professional page, this is my professional account, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I have a personal page and a professional page. So, I try, but ultimately, it's hard to completely separate it. Just same with in law enforcement, right? You just can't turn it off, and as a realtor, it's hard to turn that off as well, right? I mean, I want everybody to know that I'm a realtor, and I want everybody's, business and trust and it's the same,
So what kind of homework, I guess, can, when they're going to these showings, whether they're meeting with clients or whether they're doing an open house, what are the things that they can do in preparation? So not necessarily, on location, or not necessarily while they're there, but what are some of the things that they can prep for to say, hey, I'm going to try to make this a safer environment for me, or know a little bit more about it going into that meeting?
Absolutely. I mean, homework, just kind of like planning an operation and in law enforcement, the homework, right? Know the area. Learn the area, learn the house. We know the floor plan, right? We have access to the floor plan. So learn the floor plans.
Even the simple things when you talk about a restaurant, like know the exits, know the ways in and out.
Absolutely. Know what area you're going into. You know what I mean? There are a lot of investors, a lot of realtors that like to flip houses, and oftentimes these houses are in not the best of areas. A lot of times they're in great areas, but a lot of times they're in areas that could be a little less desirable, and they might be a little more dangerous with a higher crime rate. So, obviously we want to do business everywhere and for anyone, but if you're going to an area that's a little bit higher in crime, prepare for that. If in some way you can meet and talk to this potential client or these potential clients prior to going to a house alone with them, know who they are, and it would be good if you could. And a lot of realtors try this, and a lot of realty companies want their agents to do this. If you can meet them in an office setting with other realtors around you, or even if you go to a Starbucks or a restaurant and meet them in that way, so that you have other people around you, and so you can get a feel for the client.
Yeah, I never, I've the couple houses I've bought, the first meeting's always been at the house, just because of the schedule. So that's a huge, having that opportunity to meet them in public, or at an office would be, God, man, that'd be so much safer than actually meeting them, in the house.
It would, and it's not always feasible, right?
Sure.
So we can only engineer so many things out. There's always going to be a danger. We just have to be able to prepare for those dangers. I'm going to go do it today. I'm going to go meet a client that I've never met, that contacted me through a listing online. I'm going to go meet them at a house today and show them a house, and that's going to be our first contact. Not that that's the way I wanted it to, but that's the only way that would work for this client.
So that's that actually leads us to a great discussion, I think. So you got a real world example. You're going to go meet with a client today. It's going to be the first time that you guys are meeting, period. And you're meeting, I'm assuming, at the showing, correct?
That's correct.
At the listing.
At the house, right.
So when you're arriving, so what kind of homework have you been able to do? I mean, like you said, know the house, know the area. What kind of stuff have you done leading up to the meeting?
So we're going to go to multiple houses. I've looked over all the houses. Of course, I've printed out my information sheets on all of them. Luckily, I know the areas because I used to be an officer in those areas. So I know the areas, and I know the areas well. So I've done my homework for years right there. And one thing I do is I don't dive into these clients' backgrounds, but when I have a little time, I'll look up their Facebook page and I'll kind of see if there are any red flags or anything like that, or even if they are on social media, but I'll look them up. I usually do that to see if they're even real, right? To like, is this a scam?
Man, I never thought about that. Does that happen? I mean, is that a big problem?
Oh yeah. Oh
Really?
yeah. Oh yeah. So it's, I wouldn't say it's a big problem, but
Sure.
yeah, I've come across it. I'll like look them up and be like, it's not even I don't think this is a real person.
So
you know what I mean?
So when that happens, oh man, when that happens, does that make your spidey sense tingle because it's like, am I getting set up, or is that just
Right.
I'm just getting ghosted by a bot? Or I mean,
Well, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's the first thing is am I getting ghosted by a bot, right? But then, you know, if they are on social media, of course, I'll just briefly look it over and see if are there any red flags? Like, is this something I feel safe going into? And obviously, it's not a foolproof, right? But
at least it gives you something.
It gives me something to go off of. I'm going to get there early, and I'm going to kind of walk around the outside of the house. I'm going to kind of look through the house, and I'm going to go ahead and unlock the door, as long as I'm not interfering with any other showing that may be there,
Sure.
right? If there's already showing there, great. Like I said, the door's already unlocked. But then, of course, as they approach, you know, I'll have my eyes on them, right? I mean, as a police officer, we know we watch hands, we watch waists, and so I'll be able to do that. Yeah.
Are there any kind of red flags after you meet them and kind of going through a showing that, you know, would be good for somebody to look for that says, hey man, this person is, has some nefarious intention to where it's like, you know, this was kind of a setup, or, just something that can really kind of look for to say, hey man, maybe we need to get out of this situation.
Trust your gut.
That's exactly what I was gonna.
Yeah, I mean that's. You know, usually if it feels wrong, it's wrong. If something seems odd, it is, and I would go ahead and try to get this appointment over and get myself into a safe place as soon as I can.
So obviously, you know, we're kind of getting into the obviously into the really kind of active defense, you know, part of it. Now we're talking about red flags. We're talking about things to look for. One, you're a bigger dude, and you're a dude to begin with. You're a bigger guy. Are there some things that females in your business? Because obviously the business is, you know, I don't know if it's dominated one way or the other. It seems to be fairly equivalent from what I've seen. But there obviously are a lot of females in the business as well. A lot of women. Is there something that they, you know, need to look for, that they need to be a little bit more careful of going into it? Not necessarily on the defense side, but kind of going into things that can help set them up for success a little bit better.
I think it's the same stuff. And yes, of course, you know, I think that females, you know, they obviously have a tendency to be, or to pick up people that may want to prey on them a little more than like me, you know.
Sure.
There's a lot of female realtors that are very attractive, right? And they market that, and they should,
Sure,
right? I mean, it sells,
sure.
But that could draw in a predator,
Sure,
ultimately. Yep. And you know, kind of like we talked about the open house earlier. You know, you're advertising. I mean, you can drive down a street in Houston and see a dozen super attractive female realtors that post themselves all over the place, right? And then, of course, their information's out. They know, you know, these people know how to find you. They know your phone number, or at least your business phone number. They know where your office is. And an open house or setting up a showing is a good way for somebody that wants to do them harm to get in contact with them. So, you know, and I think that goes with males as well. If you can go to a showing with multiple people, do it. Absolutely do it. But it's not always feasible, right?
Sure.
But I do think that a female should certainly watch out for that. Maybe this client says something strange, says something out of the norm of what a client should say. We're talking about houses.
Right.
We're not talking about if I'm married. We're not talking about what I like to do. You know what I mean? Of course, that comes up, because this is a relationship business, right? You want to build relationships with people, but if it's off the bat just strange in the conversation, I would definitely bring somebody with me before I went anywhere, showed a house, met for lunch, met for coffee, anything like that.
No, that's really good. I think, you know, oftentimes just being who we are, we kind of, don't necessarily think about some of the other issues that other people may have, with that. And obviously that, I would think that that'd be a kind of a bigger issue with, the female section of realtors out there. 'Cause it's just something sometimes that we don't necessarily think about getting preyed upon nearly as much as they might. So,
right.
So really it just comes down to that being hyper vigilant.
Absolutely.
So also kind of talking about that and taking that to the next level, ways to defend yourself as a realtor. It's man, it's difficult, and it's difficult for us, as well, just because the laws with carrying guns in the nation are so vastly varied that it's difficult to say in one place that it's okay and in another place it's not. And now we're talking about private property as opposed to just walking into, a restaurant or anything like that, which completely changes things. So, obviously, carrying guns may be a good option for some people, but I'm imagining that that's probably not the best option for everybody. Is that safe to say?
Certainly. You and I are fairly well trained, I would say.
I would hope.
Certainly more than the majority of realtors out there. You and I have also been inoculated and know how to operate under stress, and we know the legal aspects of after I fire a weapon, and we're aware of that, and that's been integrated into our training prior. I think that lethal is not the best option for everybody. For one, people, you don't get to train with it often, and it's such a serious consequence, right? If I'm what I'm getting at is I'm trained, right? I know how to use this weapon. I know how to use it under stress, but I never want to.
Sure, and I think that's indicative of pretty much everybody that. Well, I hope that's indicative of everybody that carries a gun. Nobody wants to get there, right?
I never want what's coming afterwards, right? I know that I'm responsible for this weapon and the use of this weapon and the round that comes out of it. I'm responsible for that, and the thought of what may or may come, even if I use it and it's righteous, right? I was supposed to use it. The stress that comes after that, and so I think that a lot of people are scared of guns, and if they are scared of guns, they have absolutely no business having it, right? I mean, or maybe you have a little fear, and maybe that's safe, and you're going to train with it. A lot of people don't like guns.
Sure, no, that's
right.
We know that.
And yeah, absolutely. And if you don't, I think that you do definitely need other means, especially for someone that may not be skilled in self-defense. So I think having something like, a less lethal option is great, especially for, I don't always want to put it female, but the female realtors that may have somebody that wants to do them harm or prey on them.
Somebody that's out there, a realtor that's out there that wants to be proactive about their defense. How can you feel that a less lethal alternative or a less lethal force option can fit into their daily, professional life? Is it feasible? Is it really kind of their best option, or is it a good option?
I think it's definitely a good option. The less lethals to be honest, they demand less training. They're easily accessible, and they have less consequence, right? I mean, if I spray somebody with a pepper spray of some sort, right, an OC spray, well, it's going I've been hit with it. It hurts, man, and it's going to incapacitate that person for a brief amount of time with almost probably no long-term effects, and it's going to go away. So I don't have the stress of the long, lengthy court battle that's going to come, with me having to fire a lethal weapon. And the same goes for like the Byrna. I carry that one right there, as well as my lethal options. And I've been shot with that thing, and it sucks.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely be an effective deterrent. So, which really, and especially in in a real estate, in a showing, in a listing like that, you're really just trying to facilitate escape. That's not your house, so you're not trying to
absolutely.
Protect your house. You're in somebody else's property, in somebody else's house. So really you're trying to, facilitate the escape from there and to get out of there. So
absolutely 100%. Like, this is, if you're ever in a situation where you're at a showing or an open house and you have a client attempt to attack you, you don't necessarily, I don't even want to, and I kind of know what I'm doing. I don't want to sit there and fight it out. I just want to get the hell out of here. I want to get away, man. And less lethal is a way to do that. It's spray or a Byrna shot is going to give you that time to get away. And that's what you want to do. You want to incapacitate briefly so I can get the hell out of here, right? So there's no forever consequence, right? There's no lengthy consequence. It's just, I'm safe. I'm done.
Yeah.
I can go, back
yeah.
to go. I can go to my next appointment.
Yeah, which is ultimately what you want to be able to do.
Right.
But, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's one of the things that we try to do is just give people options, right? And you talked about the people that don't necessarily want to carry guns or don't like guns, and that's so they should have viable options to do just that. And even in the people that people that can't for legal reasons, or
right,
once again,
right.
We're going into private property, into somebody's home, so
Mm-hmm.
that brings up a whole new, section of legalities that we have to consider. Not even the state that we're in. So now, being able to defend yourself anywhere, anytime, is I think paramount to that safety. And in what I'm continually learning is an incredibly dangerous profession. No, it's not. it's not that bad. But there's definitely, from what you've been talking about, there's definitely opportunity there to really, to be preyed upon, and definitely opportunity that if you're not being vigilant, if you're not doing the things you need to do, doing your homework, and then, continuously assessing your surroundings and making sure that, that safety is kind of at the forefront, there's opportunity for that, for that to happen to you. And that's the business that you're in, unfortunately. So it's a great discussion about how you can, make sure and take the necessary means. I love some of the stuff that we've talked about. Just that realtors can do and to kind of help defend themselves. So, man, David, I really appreciate you joining us and being out here and talking, about self-defense, about, real estate. And I've still got so many more questions. We've just kind of run into the end of our time, but, thanks again. Really appreciate it. You've given us some great insight. So yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, make sure that you are subscribing to Byrna's Hot Take podcast to make sure, and our YouTube channel as well. We're going to be releasing all kinds of our new products on here. We're going to be doing some live AMAs, some Ask Me Anythings, answering your comments, answering your questions, product reveals, doing all kinds of stuff, on this podcast and on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it. And until next time, make sure that you are prepared to defend.